the bar being set so high with the season premiere of Watchmen last week, does this episode deliver the goods? Do we get any answered questions from last week's premiere? And does that last scene of tonight's episode mean a lot? We want to talk about that and much more. Angela relives haunting memories of an attack on her family. She detains a mysterious man who claims responsibility for Tulsa's most recent murder. An original play is performed for an audience of one. So definitely consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of our latest videos. And also comment below, let me know what you thought of tonight's episode, all your theories, the good, the bad, everything you thought of the episode. Let me know in the comments. So this review, as we did last week, is a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen tonight's most recent episode of Watchmen, go check it out, come back and watch this video, and join the conversation in the comment section. But if you've seen it, you're in the right place. So let's start this review off with a summary of what we got tonight. So shortly after last week's episode is where tonight's episode picks off. We see Will and Angela approaching Will. She sees Judd, and we see that Angela takes Will to her bakery, where we get a brief moment of Angela kind of having an emotional moment, which we haven't seen so far, especially when she transfers herself into Sister Night. She's emotionless. She's just locked into her mission and what she has at hand. So we see a little bit of emotion there, but as she comes out, gathers herself, and she's now in her suit and her mask and her vigilante outfit, we see that she interrogates Will, and Will kind of gives her some answers, but not really answers. He alludes to Judd having some skeletons in his closet, which we'll touch on a little bit later, but as well as she's continuing to ask him where he's from, what are you doing here, this, that, and the other, and he's being very coy of his answers. But at the same time, Angela gets the coffee cup from Will, and we kind of see what that kind of plays on later on. But again, within that moment, the biggest thing for me was obviously some of the stuff that they kind of talked about, but it was seeing the emotion from Angela, which we haven't gotten so far. So as we transition to the next scene, we see a flashback of the night that happened, as they call the White Night, as we see Angela and Cal having a kind of, conversation. There's something in a box that she wants to give him. We don't know, is it a costume? Is it a suit? We don't know what the gift is, because shortly after they kind of have their, the 12 o'clock hits, the white night takes place. She gets shot by one of the people from the cavalry, and the scene is kind of interesting because Cal goes off to the side. She pushes him aside. She kills the one guy, which is very brutal. And again, Regina King is such a badass in the show, but we see she takes out one of the guys, but she gets shot, and then she closes her eyes and she wakes up in the hospital. So it's very interesting to see or find out why she wasn't killed, or did Cal help her out? As we find out later in the episode, did Judd have something to do with it? So it was a very interesting scene. I hope that we relive that night once we get there. But we see Angela on her bedside. We see Judd, and it's in that conversation you find out that their relationship isn't, as, at least for me, I thought that they might have known each other for years, but it seems like they've only really known each other after the White Night. So she finds out that her partner dies, and the partner's wife dies, and half of the force, or not half, but the remaining force, the police force, resigned that night, as well as Angela. But obviously she wants to continue her duties as a police officer, but as a vigilante. So we see that interaction there, which is very interesting, how that all played out. But from there, we kind of pick back up from the flashback. We see the Looking Glass, the Sister Night, obtaining some people from what we take it as where majority of the cavalry people are at, which is kind of this, this piece of land with trailer parks, things of that nature. We see them round them up, and we see Angela kind of go in on one of the guys from the cavalry, because we obviously know she's upset from seeing Judd being killed. We see Angela transition over to going to the Greenwood Center of Cultural Heritage, where she takes the mug and tests the DNA from that mug to see more about Will's background. From there, we get a scene with Angela and her kids, and we see the little moment with the gentleman on the porch who seems to be the father of one of those children, maybe a grandfather or a relative of some sorts, but obviously there's some tension there. And we see that, what I loved about this scene in particular is the relationship, again, between Cal and Angela, that Cal's not the, in some of these shows, the significant other of the vigilante or the person that's doing these, heroic things. Their significant other doesn't really stand by their side, but I love that Cal is kind of, helping her out and is telling her she has to figure things out. And I really kind of love the relationship so far. I hope that we learn more and more about their relationship, as well as Cal as an individual, because I love Yahya as a director. But we see the interaction between Angela and Topher, as she tells him that Judd dies, and he seems to be very similar to her, doesn't have many emotions until he, knocks over his toys. But that was a really interesting scene. From there, we notice that everyone in town, at least the scenes the way the scene played out, everyone likes to watch the American horror or the American hero story, which is rated X, and children should not be watching the show. But the episode that we kind of see, or the scene that plays out, is this hooded justice character who just, we see this robbery, and that scene I thought was kind of corny at first, but then it became very violent and gruesome. It was just very surprising, kind of caught me off guard. And so far, the show has done that a lot so far, especially in the action sequences. But from there, we hear the voiceover from the Hooded Justice as we parallel in current time with Angela going to what seems to be kind of a wake for Judd. But as we know, Angela's undercover per se. She pretends to faint, and she goes in the bedroom of Judd, and she investigates to look for the skeletons in the closet. And that skeleton in the closet is an old KKK, or what we seem to be a cavalry outfit, worn by Judd with a police badge. So that'll be really interesting to see what Judd's relationship was with the cavalry, with his heritage of the family. Maybe his granddaddy or his dad was part of that, and he transitioned out of it. That'll be really interesting to see what that kind of plays out. But we also, from there, that main A storyline, we go to the B storyline with Jeremy Irons, and we kind of see that scene play out where they're reenacting from what we get from the comics, and also the Zack Snyder movie. They reenact Dr. Manhattan becoming who he is, which is a very interesting scene. But the biggest reveal from that scene was these clones, and his servants are all clones. So again, the Jeremy Irons storyline is completely different from what we're getting from our story A. Story B is very interesting so far. Every time we go there, I'm like, okay, what's going to be the new thing? And then we get some twins in the action, some identical twins. So I'm very excited to see how these storylines come ahead, and what Jeremy Irons and everything's going to go on, and tell us how that's going to connect. But very interesting scene there. As we wrap up the show, we see Will. He left the bakery but came back to make some eggs. We get the phone call. If you guys recall on my last week's review, I had mentioned that there's probably some relation. Didn't know what it was, but we find out that Will is Angela's grandfather that she never learned about. And we get a hint of, your parents, and we don't really know too much about her background or her parents and everything. So it'll be really interesting to see more and more about Angela's backstory. But we do find out that it is her grandfather. She's going to take him in for questioning, but then the WTF moment of the week is, he mentions to her earlier that he has friends in high places. We see some weird aircraft take him off, and they go away, and then the little sign comes out. I love how the show plays out just like a comic. It's just like the last page of a comic. She sees a letter, and, that's the end of the episode. A very good episode for me. Last week's episode was probably one of my favorite pilot episodes of any show ever. It was so from the Tulsa riots or the massacre to everything that we got in last week's episode. It was really interesting to see the show kind of shift into how the rest of the season will play out, and the chess pieces that we're going to get in this season. So I was very pleased with week 2. It lived up to episode 1, and I didn't watch what happens next week. I'm going to not do that for the rest of the season because I want to go into the new episodes just being surprised, as I imagine a lot of you would too. So very excited to see what next week has to offer. I wrote down some questions from tonight's episode as far as what I hope to see next week and as the season goes on. What's the deal with Judd and that cavalry and that KKK outfit? The relationship between Will and Angela, will we find out more about their family tree? What's the deal with Will's pills that helps him with his memories? Who was the girl, and what was the papers that who was she delivering the papers to? As I get excited about tonight's episode. What is the cavalry plans? What happened to Angela's parents? But again, another solid episode. I really was very pleased with the follow-up of one of the best pilots I've ever seen. So very excited for this season and really enjoyed tonight's episode. So I am very, very, very into this show. I'm loving it, and I want to know what you all thought about tonight's episode. Give this video a like, share this video, and again, comment below what you thought of the episode and your theories as well. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our content, and make sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. And this week, we have a lot of stuff in store for you all, from reviews from Terminator. We got reviews for Last Christmas, Dr. Sleep. We got some stuff coming out from Netflix, so definitely keep an eye out for some content coming for you guys this week. Thank you for watching this review. We'll see you next week for Watchmen episode 3, and we'll also see you for our follow-up of Castle Rock season 2 episode 4. So definitely keep an eye out for those reviews. Thank you all again for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.